Hello there and welcome to another episode of Focal Point. I am Jayamal Ratnayaka for the Newsfirst team, and today we have a very dynamic young gentleman joining us on our program. He is none other than attorney at Law Akila Gayan Kaushalya. A very good day to you, sir, and thank you very much for joining us on the program.
Good evening, Jayamal.
So today we will be talking about yet another pertinent topic. We have seen mass protests in Sri Lanka. We have seen young people coming to the fore and protesting against the current regime. They want a system change, but the political authority has failed to bring about a sustainable change in the country as of yet. So today we will be talking about three key points, and the first of which will be resolving the current political deadlock in the country. Despite Sri Lanka facing its worst economic crisis in its history, the political authority has failed to address this and to come to a common consensus on the matter. How do we address this instability? How do we bring about a stable political regime which will ensure that our economy also comes to a flourishing level and our economy begins to progress? That is my first question to attorney at law Akila Gayan today.
Thank you, Jayamal, for having me in this program today. Basically, if we look at the issues as of date, people are on the roads, they are protesting because they have no option left but to come to the roads and protest. But when you look at the other picture, they are demanding a change in the current ruling regime, a system change, and also they are asking the president and the prime minister and the government to go home. But when you address it very carefully, the mere issue is we don't have money. Simply, we don't have money. But to have money, because to get dollars, to get foreign remittances, first thing is we should have political stability in the country. Now, earlier when these protests started at the very outset, everyone demanded 225 plus 1 should go home. But later on, upon enlightenment on the laws and the constitution of this country, they have come to a negotiation where the people are now demanding for an interim government. Because majority is demanding an election, but with the available issues, for an instance, we don't have electricity, neither do we have papers to go for an election, and we don't have money, whereas an election involves a huge budget. So when we don't have the necessary requirements or the resources to go for an election, best thing is to establish an interim government. And when an interim government is established, now I heard the president has given a green light on establishing an interim government, but that is also should be done expeditiously, because otherwise day by day we are going towards a dark hole of an economic crisis. And Jayamal, I think we are relatively young, but as far as I know, we are fighting the worst economic crisis of all time in Sri Lanka. So actions should be immediate, and more importantly, we have to make sure the central bank operates independently. Without politicians influencing the entity, it has to function. And the real situation should be briefed to the citizens, and we should, the interim government, if established, they have to inform the citizens, we need a timeline of this period, and we have to do these things to overcome this issue. Because if you take it simply, we don't have rupees, we don't have inward remittances. So the simple steps are save the rupees, increase inward remittances, and decrease outward remittances. So to do that, we have to make sure our local manufacture is steady. But overnight we can't do it. So it's a procedure which will take some weeks or maybe months, maybe years. But this has to be explained thoroughly to the community. Even the president and the interim government, if established, they have to come out and say, we are also going to sacrifice. We will also sacrifice. We will work under limited resources, limited privileges. We will limit the number of cabinet ministers in the interim government. Because otherwise, people will not know what will happen. Because first thing, the first and foremost thing which the government should do right now is control the unrest which is there on the roads. Because if not, it will affect each and every sector, because all these protests are justified and that has to be addressed first. So if an interim government is established, I think the people will have some sort of redress, and they will wait with hope that these things will revert back in some months. So, as a young professional, that is my view, because we have to go with the law and the constitution also, because we can't violate it. So, the available provisions are such that interim government is the best option to control the unrest, to mitigate the disappointment of people towards the government and the ruling regime, and that will bring a little bit of hope. But I wouldn't say that the issues will be sorted overnight if an interim government is appointed, but we will have hope, and we can still exert pressure, and we can give them suggestions and proposals that these things should be done with the help of expertise.
Akila, for decades we have trusted in veteran politicians because we believed that they had the experience, they had the know-how and the knowledge to steer our country into one that flourishes day by day. But with the current situation in this country, Sri Lanka's youth have come forward to revolt, and there has been a revolution of Sri Lanka's young citizens who are willing to come forward and to take up the big challenge of restoring our country to its former glory. But there seems to be some sort of pessimism among the masses, if I may say so, about handing over the reins of the country to younger citizens. They say they lack experience or they might not know what to do. How would you address this, and how would you break this bias?
Jayamal, the major issue we as Sri Lankans have is, there are certain professions which comes, the best results would be the number of years of experience. And the other thing is, now when you take for an example, now I am an attorney at law. The best of the lawyers are with decades of experience, but I wouldn't say there are amazing juniors. I mean, there are talented juniors, and politics is also something like that as per the belief of our citizens. But the issue is, now you and I are young professionals, young activists. So, have you ever read about old politics? When you consider old politics, if you go back to history, back to 1940s, D.S. Senanayake was 30 years old when he entered politics. SWRD Bandaranaike was 27 years when he entered politics. Mahinda Rajapaksa was 25 years. Ranil Wickremesinghe, if the sources are not incorrect, it says that he was the organizer for Kalaniya electorate when he was 21. However, he entered the parliament when he was 29. So, they entered when they were young. So, somewhere has gone wrong. So, we have to find where the issue is. First thing is, just because we are young people, just because we have boiling young blood, we are not going to keep the adults, senior professionals outside. We need their blessings. We need their guidance. We need their expertise. But they can be consultants to us. But young people should be in the lead. Now, if I may take you back to 1970s, when Mrs. Sirimawa Bandaranaike was at the lead, we had around 17 freight vessels for Sri Lanka.
Right.
And in 1980s, we had to sell it to Singapore and some other countries. Today, they have the largest shipping companies in the world, whereas we have no freight vessels in Sri Lanka. And if I may take you back to 1970s, when D.S. Senanayake wrote a book about agriculture and patriotism, he encouraged this Govi Janapada procedure in Sri Lanka. He started Minneriya Govi Janapada, and he gave 7 acres to a farmer, from 2 acres from land, 5 acres from paddy lands. And he also directed them, these things should be cultivated. So, then these are the things, I think the contents of the book, Agriculture and Patriotism, is more timely today than those days.
Right.
So, first thing is, we have to trust in young leaders, we have to trust in young people, which is why we are very keen on expressing our views, submitting our proposals, and we have to submit the proposals and the ideology which will bring sustainable results to the country.
Right, Akila. Let's talk about youth in governance since we are on this topic. Let's say young people do come in, let's say young professionals do come in to positions of influence where they can wield influence and make a change in this country. But for over 74 years, we have sought this kind of system change, this kind of development. But a lot of people continue to question as to whether young professionals in this country actually have a plan. Do they know what they're doing? Do they know where they want to go? How do we address that?
Yes. Now, when you go back to the protests, I think this started a month or two ago. When we go back in history, the ways in which they protested were very innovative. They came out of the medieval methods of protesting. They were very innovative, strong in giving their message. So, one would question, what is the plan of a 27-year-old, 28-year-old for this country? What is his vision for this country? Jaimal, after these issues were on the stage, I actually participated a few youth forums. And I was thoroughly impressed to see a 22-year-old boy questioned about the electoral system of our country, first past the post system. So, a 22-year-old of this country is conversant in the electoral system which was there in 1972. So, that shows their that shows their courage to enter into politics and their interest in politics. Exactly. So, we I think after 1947, 7 decades of political history, tradition is difficult to penetrate, but that does not mean that is impossible. Now, all of us, we speak of suggestions, proposals, and we give our ideology and everything, but we are still outside the system. So, we are going to change the system while standing outside the system. First thing, to change the system, we have to go inside the system.
You have to be integrated into it.
Exactly. So, indirectly what I am saying is, to infiltrate a political tradition which was there for over 7 decades, we have to contest in an election. Sooner or later there will be an election, because people are demanding for an election. About after a year or two there will be an election. So, in an election, starting from Pradeshia Sabha level up to the national level in parliament, youth should enter politics and they should speak about politics. The mistake was youth lost interest in politics and they did not want to speak about politics, which is why we are facing these issues every day. And
just to interrupt, because you said that youth didn't care about politics for a while there, and that leads to political apathy, where people are ignorant to what is happening in the country as long as their lives are okay and they are not affected by what is happening around them. How do we change that mindset, especially in the minds of young people? How do you plan to address that, Akila?
Jaimal, first thing is, as I told you, there is a political tradition which was running here for over 7 decades. So, for that we have to go and contest for an election. For that we have to go outside Colombo district. There are 22 electoral districts. We have to go to the villages and we have to ask for their vote. But for them to vote us, what is our assurance? What will we do? The tradition is, you should have a manifesto. You should have a vision for your country and you should have a vision for the community of this country. So, which is why I am suggesting this is the best opportunity for youth to come up and join a political party which will be established. I think there will be number of political parties which will enter in this year or next year, because
landscape.
Of exactly because all community, every person is demanding an independent group of leaders for this country. And the other thing is, for us to go to people, we have to come up with a strong manifesto which should be promulgated under the consultancy of experts, adults. Now, for an instance, we have the fertilizer issue. Now, towards the end of this month, May to September, Yala Kanna is starting. We have the required water because we got rain in the previous weeks. But the problem is, we don't have chemical fertilizer. One packet has gone up to 40,000 rupees. So, then we will be in terrible danger if we do not mechanize it now, because it will be too late. So, people might think how we do not know the agriculture. Now, every time when there is a committee, there can be an academic professional, but where are the ground level farmers in that committee? So, we have to regularize it. We have to make it according to the circumstances. And the other thing is, what I wanted to say is, we recently got together through social media as young professionals. We named it as Way Forward for Young Professionals, and we issued a statement where doctors, engineers, accountants, human resource managers, even professors who are experts in renewable energy, solar energy, around 47 professionals signed it and we published it with a short term plan and a long term plan. And at the latter part of this letter, we indicated, we as responsible young professionals in this country, we will lay the foundation for young leaders who are all over the country to enter into politics and to contest and to come to the national level. Because when we are inside the system, when we have the majority, it's very easy to change the system. So that was our vision. And also we are in the process of promulgating a manifesto, whereas I'll give you 2 or 3 examples before I wind up. First one is, now we know we have a lot of vehicles in the government sector. So to service, the seasonal service and the repairs, it goes to the licensed agents in this country. So then when vehicles go there, they give quotations because that is paid by the government. Let's say around a repair of 175,000 will cost around $500,000 by a company. We also have Sri Lanka Mechanical and Engineering Corps Regiment. Now, if you saw the last Independence Day celebrations, we saw vehicles which were manufactured by the forces were out on exhibition. So that shows that they have the expertise, they have the required resources, they have the required knowledge. So why can't we amend the circular and send these vehicles to them or to recognized local garages? Because that will save rupees, because we will be paying a considerably low amount. Also, that will save a lot of dollars, because when we pay the companies, the company money will go to the mother company which is in another country as dollars. So these are simple things which we suggested.
Minor tweaks that can go a long way.
That can go a long way. So assurance will always be there, right? So these are things which we should do. And another aspect which I want to highlight before I finish, immigrant workers. When you take the government service, we have office assistants, management assistants, development officers. They have a provision as per the establishment code and the other laws of the country. On an approval by the government, they can go for foreign employment for 5 years without salary, without being paid by the government.
Okay.
I mean, they can leave the job for 5 years.
Right.
So then those things are done, but on a lower level, because they are not encouraged. Just imagine, we send around, we encourage this mechanism and send off excess staff while we enter government to government agreements with other countries. We save rupees because we don't have to pay for them for 5 years. Also, since their families are here, they will always remit the dollar salary they will derive to Sri Lanka. So these are simple things which we could do in order to cater to the economic issues. These are the simple things which we have suggested. So we are in the process of promulgating it, and I am sure Sri Lankan community at this juncture, we have forgot our parties, color, race, religion, and we have united as one. So we should take this unity for the betterment of this country, and we should come up with a solid plan with a strong group of leaders. It might not happen tomorrow, but even if it happens in the next election, we have to encourage every young leader, because I would like to remind something Vice President of USA said the day she assumed her duties.
Kamala Harris.
She said, "I certainly will be the first female Vice President of USA, but I won't be the last. Every girl who's watching me tonight will dream of becoming the Vice President or the President of this country." So everyone who's watching me, every youth who's watching me should make up their minds to work for this country, to have an interest on politics, and make sure we eliminate the corruption of this system, and we will make sure the country runs in a better direction than it is right now. So that is the message that I have to give you. And also, I have seen a lot of groups, they have gathered and they are actually putting up strong proposals. So I would also like to propose the government to appoint a committee which includes representatives from the youth, young professionals and young leaders. So, to appoint a committee where they could liaise with the government and with the sensitive segments.
Ground level
exactly,
communities.
exactly. So, that is one of the proposals that I would like to make. So, for us to come up, youth should take the lead. For us to take the lead, we need adults, we need seniors, we need senior professionals, we need your support. Without that, we can't make it.